What's going on, everybody? I'm glad you're here. Today we're going to be talking about the Remington 870. So, this is going to be a review of the Remington 870, but I'm not going to do one of these dry reviews where I tell you how long it is and how many pounds it is, and that stuff's so boring to me. I don't know what it is about YouTubers that we like to read spec sheets, or they do. I don't. I just think that stuff, like, we all have Google, you know what I mean? I don't know why people need to do that, but this is just going to be my experience with it, my thoughts, my feelies, all those little things I feel about it. And so before we jump into it, though, I have to tell you a very sad story and my path to getting this 870. So many moons ago, my dad was a cop, and he had in his possession a mint, unfired, 1978, I believe, deep blued police magnum 870 with wood stocks. It's been a beautifully deep stained set of wood stocks, and that's what you're seeing before you. And basically, he was given this when he was a cop. When he first started, and he put it in a silicone sock, put it in his closet, and he never touched it again until I became of age and he gave it to me. Now, like all of us in our early 20s, we're completely stupid. And at least I was. Like, with zeros on the end, I was very stupid. And the tactical turtleneck was very tight on me in those days. And so I took this beautiful shotgun, which should have been an heirloom, a legacy piece, really, and I desecrated it. I stripped that bluing off. I Duracoated it. Ugh, I can't. It just makes me gag to think about it. I put on plastic stuff all over it, and I desecrated it. I know. You guys, I don't blame you if at this point you just don't watch another video. Frankly, I probably earned it with what I just confessed to you. However, and it's going to be funny, if my friend John watches this video, he's going to laugh, because it's usually once a week he texts me to remind me of how much of a scumbag I am for what I did to that shotgun. It hurts. It hurts. And luckily I found some pictures of it so you guys can see it too. I am not going to show you a picture of the shotgun after I got done with it because I'm ashamed. So, fast forward a bit. That shotgun actually went back to my dad. He actually loved the upgrades that I did to it. And I will be honest, that's going to be a project. I'm probably going to ask him if I can have it back to restore it, to re-blue it, put some proper stocks on it. I would probably even refinish these stocks and sacrifice these to get them back on that shotgun, get it back to its former glory. But anyway, he liked the upgrades, and so it's back with him. It's still in the family, albeit not in the glory that it once held. And so over the years, I've gone through several shotguns. The Mossberg Shockwave, the 500 with all the wood on it, and the gold trigger. I don't remember its model number. The 590. I've gone through another 870 very briefly, which that one I also regret selling. The 870 hardwood home defense. Fantastic shotgun. Man, look, I've gotten out of this bad pattern in the past 6 or 7 years where I don't sell guns anymore. I keep them all because I've tasted too much regret of selling guns and then having to tell these stories about one that got away from me. So I don't do this anymore, but all those shotguns are gone, and this is the only shotgun that I own currently. So about 5 years ago, I was surfing Gunbroker, as one does, and I always like to do a quick little scan of the police trade-in section, the stuff that cops don't want anymore and usually sell pretty affordably. And I see this 870 Tactical. Let me flip it over so you can see. So I see this guy for sale, and it's still got the stickers on it. It came with black plastic stocks, just the real basic stuff, and I still have the stocks, but just like this. Nothing really special. 870 Tactical, Parkerized finish, and some plastic stocks. But here's the kicker. $180 with free shipping. I know. Holy crap, man. So I jumped on it with both feet right away. And there was a few of them actually in this particular sale. By the time I got done checking out, all like 12 of them were gone. So I barely got this one on that sale. And so I get it in, and I'm thinking, man, this thing's going to be thrashed or whatever. No, guys, this thing had all the stickers on it. The bolt was completely scrape free. You can even see now the bolt has a little finish right here on this back edge. But the pump arms, zero wear. The magazine tube, zero wear. I mean, you just start kind of scanning the gun over, and it's like, dude, this thing's never been shot. So I got a brand new 870 Tactical for $180. Yep, pretty proud of that one. So got the gun. I put a light on it when I first got it, and I have like the Mesa side saddle that goes on that side, and which is not bad. It's fine, but man, the old path was calling to me, and I wanted some wood stocks, but man, it's so hard to find wood stocks that just scratch the itch the way these old 1970s style stocks do. And so I happened to be on TaxSwap, and I see this profile right here of this stock. I go in there, and this guy wants $150 for both a matching fore end and rear stock, and these are from the 70s. Again, jumped on it with both feet. Right, that when you go sniffing around for these original fore ends like this, especially a matched set, man, you're going at least $400. They're just very, very sought after fore ends. So I get them in, and they're very dry. They're a little beat up. It feels like somebody found these in a shed, and so I wish I would have stained them darker before I clear coated them, but I did clear coat these with my favorite Minwax water-based polyurethane. Just a really fantastic polyurethane that kind of goes on, dries really quickly. Within about 10 minutes, you can do a nice brief sanding with 1000 grit, and you have a basic shine, and it's very, very good protectant. I built my dining room table and did about 10 coats of this stuff, and my kids just thrash on that table with forks and knives and all sorts of stuff, and it hasn't scratched. So it's a very good finish. And by the way, this is only like, I think, one coat and then one dusting coat, so it doesn't take much to really do the job. Right, so you've seen a lot of the fore end. Very good condition. I mean, very good condition. And the stock, you got your old school, just hard rubber butt pad, and then some moron tried to drill a sling mount and missed, and then crammed it full of like toothpicks, and then wood glued it, and then tried to burn it so it hid it was me. I did that. Again, if you guys just don't come back after this video, I totally understand. Second time's a charm. Got the sling mount in there. I know, it's ugly. So there it is. That is my 870 Tactical. Now since then, I don't know how many times I've shot it, but I just shot birdshot through it for the first time over the weekend. The only thing I've ever shot through it is buckshot and slugs. Just full power stuff. Fantastic. Everything runs as it should. So let's actually get into the particulars about this gun, and then we'll talk about the review. So basically, 870 Tactical, you got your solid steel magazine tube and receiver. The only cost-saving measure that I don't really like on this gun is the trigger housing, this whole trigger mechanism. It's plastic. I prefer the metal just because, but this isn't bad. It's just, it sticks out. The rest of the gun feels very solid and old school, and then you go to grab the trigger, and it's just a little bit of a bummer to feel plastic. Now, you can swap these. They're just expensive. This one came with a 6-round magazine tube and a 18.5-inch, smooth bore barrel. And I like running these slick. I don't like anything tapped up top. I just like a smooth barrel, no rifle sights, none of that. I'm a big bead guy. I think they're fantastic. Now, let's get into the 870 review. And really, you can't talk about the 870 without talking about the Mossberg 500. And I know there's others. There's the Winchesters of the world and the cheaper stuff like the Charles Dailies. And then there's maybe some Brownings in there. But let's be honest. If you think pump action shotgun, you're thinking one of two things. You're thinking the Mossberg 500 or the 870. I prefer the 870 far and above over the 500. And I'm going to tell you why. So remember how I said this has a steel receiver. Here's why that matters to me. It never did before this story. But there was one time where I was riding around with some buddies, and I had a Mossberg 500, just basic shotgun. And I went to go jump out of the bed of the pickup truck when we got to where we were going, and I had my Mossberg. And let's just say I didn't stick the dismount. I might have looked like a newborn giraffe being flung off a trampoline, and my shotgun just went end over end off the side of the truck. Now, it didn't fall like 10 feet. I didn't throw it at the ground. It fell about 3 feet. And I went to go pick it up, and the first thing I did was check. Now, I had an empty chamber at that time. It was a full mag, but I just to go check the gun out, and I got about right here. And I could not pull the bolt back any further. Fast forward, took it back to my house. Turns out the receiver was bent. The entire receiver right here was bent. And the shotgun was completely inoperable. Now, through very janky methods that I'm not going to talk about, I got it straight again. And I ended up selling that shotgun. Everything works. Everything's good. But Mossbergs have an aluminum receiver. And I learned why aluminum is not the best choice for a hard use shotgun. And yes, by hard use, I mean completely falling off the side of a pickup truck. So besides that, the other reasons I really prefer the 870, I don't like the safety on top of the Mossberg. I think the safety down here makes a lot more sense. And here's why. I don't run around riding the safety on a shotgun like I would, say, on a 1911 or an AR-15. When I'm walking around with this gun, I'm doing it with an empty chamber because 870s are not drop safe. I don't know about other shotguns. I just know 870s are not. So I carry with an empty chamber. When I need to, load it, you load it up and you go to town. I don't keep one in the pipe, so the safety really is a zero factor for me. And then if I want to, if I'm kind of done shooting but I still have ammo in the gun, there's a nice little trick you can do where you start pulling the slide back. In fact, I'm just going to show you. So normally what would happen is you pull the slide back and you get a shell in the receiver ready to go. But what I like to do is you can pull start pulling the slide back, reach your thumb in there, and push that shell back in, and now you have an empty gun. So what you can do is stop it from feeding a shell into the chamber here, pull the other shell out to unload it, forward, and then stick your shell that you just pulled out of the chamber back into the mag. So I'm a big fan of that. That's how I roll with a shotgun. So the safety doesn't matter to me at all. I think visually the Mossberg safety just makes the gun look like, no offense to Ruger owners, but like a Ruger. I feel like the next thing it's going to do is have a big gaudy text on the sides that tells me to read the manual before I use it. I also am a big fan of the action release here on the 870. You got your button right up front. Okay, very easy to just reach up there with your finger and break that open. One of the big things that people very often talk about how Mossberg is better is it has 2 extractors. I'll be honest with you guys, I have never had a feeding or extraction or ejecting problem with an 870. So overall, I just think the 870 has a much more sleek, beautiful set of controls, and I think they're much more functional for how you actually employ the shotgun. Of course, the action, buttery smooth. That is something that I think 870s are renowned for, is their action. Very reliable, obviously. So is the Mossberg, though. They're neck and neck. The loading gate here on the 870, again, I think it makes a lot more sense. I don't like how on the Mossberg this is just open. I like the fact that you have the loading gate sort of wanting to keep things out of here, so you're not getting anything in your receiver. You actually have to push past the loading gate. I think that's actually a good thing for me. So those are some of the technical reasons why I think the 870 is better, that I prefer it. Look, Mossberg's a great gun. Like I said, I had a 500 standard. I had the 500 with the wood stocks and the gold trigger. And I had the 590. The 590, I would say, is a solid shotgun. That one feels a little more serious to me. But when I compare the 500 or the 590 even to an 870, there's something about Mossberg's that just feels sloppy, rushed, and less than. And look, I know the Marines use them. I get it. The Marines go through a lot of Crayola too, okay? So anyway, I really think the 870, like when you look at the 500s, they have this finish that just looks like just really cheap paint. It's kind of shiny. It doesn't have any real depth. Whereas at the very least, you get like a Parkerized gun with the 870. It has some durability. There's something serious about it, right? The action on the Mossberg 500. Look, my old 500, I shot the brakes off that rifle. And over time, the action became very sloppy. Smooth, very smooth. But I mean, sloppy to the point where, like, just the left and right play, I felt like I could just really twist and crank on the pump on that gun. There was too much play for my comfort. The trigger assembly on the 500 was just super loose. It worked, okay? It worked. But for me, from a fit, finish, durability, and material standpoint, I think the 870 is just so much better of a shotgun. Now, I have to say, that's not talking about modern 870s. I don't know who owns Remington. Remington is unfortunately one of those companies like Colt that's just become the village bicycle. It's been bought and sold so many times. I don't really know where they stand, and it makes me pretty nervous to buy anything that they produce today. And that brings us into kind of the final point. Look, I think Remington 870s, it's very much like the Colt name, right? There's these companies that have been around for hundreds of years, and they just have a piece of American heritage that others don't. And from the design, from the construction, just the visual, the lines, there's something about the top of an 870 that just says I'm from the 60s. And I love the lines on the shotgun. It feels robust. I say this quite a bit, that there's this old world feel in some guns where they just feel, back in the day, in like the 50s and before, maybe the 60s, it just felt like guns were made with so much care and heart, and they were so much more sturdy, and the materials were top notch. And you pick up those guns and there's an old world craftsmanship that we don't have now, and the 870 feels that way to me. So it is definitely a heritage thing. This is America's shotgun, in my opinion. Not hating on anybody else. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people say, hey, I've got a Mossberg. It works just fine for me. I believe you. I'm just telling you my mileage. And when I compare these head to head, even against other companies, I had a Browning pump action for a while, and it was nice. But same thing, man. You feel these pump arms, and you feel all the little parts and pieces, and they're just flimsy, and they're bendy, and the finishes kind of scratch off with your fingernail, and it just feels like there's so many corners have been cut. But when I pick up this 870, man, I got this hardy Parkerized finish. All the controls feel serious. There's nothing that just feels loose and wobbly and like, oh man, I should check on that, or I should tighten that screw, or no, none of that. The whole thing just feels great. Now, from the perspective of like how I run the shotgun, you know, I've got the woods walking video that just came out, that will have come out before this video, and to me, this is like premier woods walking rifle material, right? Big fan of this. I don't like to run a bunch of crap on it. Look, 870s are kind of heavy as it is. Shotguns are heavy as it is, especially when you got a full mag tube of ammunition. And when you throw a light on there and then a side saddle, which I have, they're all, you know, in the parts box, and I could throw them on there easy enough. But when you start adding all that stuff up there, the shotgun just gets unwieldy and really heavy, and it's just like, okay, this all sucks. So if I need to carry spare ammo, I carry around these. These are California competition, shell holders. I got turned on to these by a buddy who used to shoot competition, and man, what a functional, simple design. So it's really cool. You can clip this into whatever you want, right? Hooks into those little metal ears. Very sturdy, very solid steel there. I usually just hook that onto my belt, and then you have a little Velcro spacer there. So if you're using maybe longer 3-inch shells, you can fit those in there. I'm using these short. These are my main sort of carry ammo. These are Hornady Tap double-aught buck. It's 8 pellets of copper buckshot, low recoil, really good stuff. And it's just cool. You can load 4 shells in there, and they're indexed, so you can, and you have this open bottom, so you can literally just grab all 4 of them if you want to and load. And then they're captured in there by this little spring-loaded round guy. Okay, you see that? And so they don't come out very easily at all. So I have a couple of these actually, but I think this is way better. Throw this on the belt. This is way better than loading down and encumbering the shotgun. I think keep these on your belt. It's a faster reload anyway. Trying to squeeze a bunch of shells out of that side holder, I think is much slower than just reaching down at your belt, shuck out some shells, feed them in, and you're good to go. So that's why I don't have a bunch of crap hanging off of my shotgun. So there it is, everybody. That is my thoughts on the 870. It's America's shotgun. Man, they have the lines. They're beautiful. They're functional. They're sturdy. They're built right. Can't speak for the modern stuff. I have no idea. They might be good, but I got to say, look, if you can find an 870 that's about 10 years old or more, they are worth whatever you will pay for them. Now, here's the cool part. You don't have to go spend a ton of money on these either. If you go right now on all the sites we all frequent, we all have our favorite places to look for, these sort of things. If you go look for them, you can find a ton of 870s at $300 a pop. Granted, they got 28-inch barrels and all that good stuff. That's no big deal. You can swap out barrels on these really easily. So if it were me, I would grab one of those. Okay, maybe you got to throw some new stocks on there, clean it up a little bit or something. That's fine. But these guns are sturdy. They're simple. And even one that's real thrashed and wore out, I still think is worth it, and I would feel very comfortable buying. So there you go. That's my review on the 870. It's America's shotgun. I think you should get one if you don't already have one for sure. So until next time, we will see you guys later.